Oh, finally. Anyways, hello, J.E. Krueger, author of, whoops, still won't let me do that. Author of the books of 9 and 10 Penance. And I thought I would do another live video today to talk about my 3 novels and just whatever anyone wants to talk about, I guess. What if anybody chimes in. But I figured I'd talk about the 3 books I've got. And maybe kind of the process it took to get there. So you can't even really see. Whoa. That's the book I'm currently reading. That's the book. What a way to start the live video. All right. We can do this. I'll just talk about each book in the series. There are 10 books in all planned. And if you've been watching, following along, I read The Magic Paintbrush already. That book is kind of beat up. I've been carrying it around with me everywhere. That was the first novel I wrote in the series. It's about a boy trapped in a painting. He tells his story over 500 years later. And I did all the art for the book. The Kindle edition has all the art I did. I put it in the book, but it's all black and white. It's really expensive to get and tough to get doesn't matter how published you are, it's tough to get color into a into a book because of the printers. But you can see, but the Kindle edition has all the nicer versions of the art. But anyways, yeah, that's The Magic Paintbrush, a coming of age, young adult artistic fantasy, as I like to call it, or the poor man's Harry Potter. I think that kind of drove it one day. Because I had thought about Harry Potter. I'm an American, as bad as that sounds, but it's like, yeah, Harry Potter's got that British kid in it. And he goes to that magical world and he's eating crumpets and he doesn't have it so bad, in my opinion. I mean, sure, it's part of the year, it's not that great. But the other half of the year, he's in this magical wizarding school. And so mine's like the American version of it, where he does have it that bad. It's not easy all year long. So, but he lives, Aidan Fragonard, the boy trapped in the painting, starts off as a simple farmer, and he's pretty poor. He works a field every day, and he's not, he's trying to get crops to grow. But then he meets an artist, and of course, he wants to become an artist like this Jared Botticelli, like this artist that he meets. But he's got to stick to doing hard work. Excuse me. Hard manual labor. So, but he meets this guy. He's got a magic paintbrush, and they paint the stars like Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. And he goes on this magical adventure with the paintbrush. But I read the whole novel. It's up on my channel. And you can, excuse me, you can listen to the whole thing on my channel if you want. But I thought it'd be fun to pair art history with a book. So, and how could I pull that off? How could I take the world of art history and throw it into a novel? And of course, I'm going to trap a boy in a painting. You got to have portraits, right? Like just imagine that painting came alive, and what kind of story could I tell about this painting? And that's kind of how I came up with that concept. So it features over 50 famous painters throughout history. And yeah, he uses a paintbrush to bring a garden to life that tries to eat him. It's got a man with a Picasso of a face, and it's got a sea battle in it, which I reiterated all the great seascape artists into that story. Um, so I thought that would be a lot of fun. And I studied regionalism pretty heavily, the 1930s era projects, painters and artists and stuff, and just different artists throughout history, and threw it all into a book. Um, the man with the Picasso face, that one was fun, a sub character in the novel. But he has his face rearranged like a Picasso painting. So he's kind of a snooty kind of kid, but now he has to live out the rest of his days who he is on the inside with his face rearranged. Um, yeah, that's book one in the series, and like I said, I read the whole novel on YouTube, so you can subscribe if you want and listen to it. But here we are, and there's book two in the series, the books of 9 and 10 penance, which I don't know, that title just struck me. I guess I just with my writing style. Um, 9 and 10 penance. That's just life. That's how you mull through life, or at least how I have throughout my years, mulling through life, um, like you're paying some sort of toll, penance for something you're not sure what. But anyways, yeah. So there's gonna be 10 books in this series, and they're all standalone. But this one, I had a hard time explaining that novel, and I still do. I call it a mashup between A Princess Bride and The Odyssey. Anyone listening can chime in. Like, I don't know what I'm just doing live videos. I don't know what to talk about on these things. But I did all the art for these books, and this one was inspired by my Aunt Fern and Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill was in World War II, and he spent 15 months in a camp over there. He got the Nazis shot down his airplane and then separated him from his crew, and he spent 15 months, as he put it, in a dirt field doing nothing. Um, but I thought if my Aunt Fern and Uncle Bill were together for like 70 years, I don't know, something like that. And so that kind of got inspired, like, what would it be like if those two were actually separated? But anyways, in this story, um, Allison White, the story of Allison White and Stephen Blackman, um, and it's a romantic comedy. But they're gonna get married on this island, but she's already on the island, and he's sailing there to be with her. Well, a great storm erupts, and the ship starts to sink, and he ends up on a tree, and he floats away, and he gets knocked unconscious. And the next day, he wakes up and decides to leave a message in a bottle and throw it out to sea to let her know, I'm fine, but you better move on because I'm lost. And he inadvertently goes through the island. He's warned not to, but he walks through the field of forgetfulness. He forgets everything he once knew, including his own name. And the only thing he can remember is that, oh, hey, Carolina Garza. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Hello. But he forgets everything except that he's in love with a beautiful woman, but he doesn't even know her name or what she looks like. And he goes to this island and he meets all these men who walked through the field, forgot everything, and they're all wandering around searching for a woman they can't remember. And so he goes on this mismatched adventure with these men searching for a woman that doesn't exist on this island. And the whole novel goes chapter by chapter back and forth between Allison White and Stephen Blackman. Well, Allison gets the message in the bottle the next day, and reads the letter, and she's heartbroken, and she wants to go save him. Well, she meets this couple that had the same problem, and they said, well, we can help you. My husband was lost on that island, but we have a map. We can get you to the island, but you're going to have to go at it alone. So they give her the map, and it's a map guided by the stars above, which she uses as a sail for her little tiny rowboat. And she sets sail out into the open ocean in that little rowboat, and she encounters a tree serpent, an evil mermaid, the mermen that want to hunt her down because this mermaid stole these guys' legs and turned them into mermen to lust after her, but now they're just angry and they want to put her head at the end of their three-pronged sticks. She meets Adam Griffard. There's a suspicious-looking rock. It's got this piece of string in it. Usually when I pitch that to people, they're over it. They don't want to hear about it, but it's got a piece of string in it. And I think that's the most interesting part of the book. I'll be honest with you. But yeah, so she goes searching for him on that island. And then I've got book 3 out now. These two are on Kindle right now. They're on sale. I think pretty cheap. I put them on there for $2.99. But those two are on Kindle. I do not have a Kindle version of this one as of yet. I just don't. I worked really hard on that one. So that one's a dark fantasy. So yeah, it's all part of a series, but they're all intertwined, but they're all different books because that's just the way my brain works. And so I've got it all methodically laid out in my head, every book, so before they're written. So I'm still writing them right now. But I drew my own hand for that novel. And that one is about Yazelski. He's returning home with his son, who he feels is a failure because he can't turn him into a hunter like him. And he meets his 2 most loyal subjects as he's headed back home. And they're trying to kill him, and he doesn't understand why. They're acting like they don't even know him. They're acting like really bizarre. But they warn him that there's this unicorn wandering around, and that his lands have been split in 2 by a magical rainbow that's cast a shadow over the land, separating his lands into 2 worlds. One, our world, and this really dark world that they don't understand. But he ends up killing his 2 best friends, and he heads back, and he finds out, oh my gosh, there really is a rainbow, and something's not right on the other side of the rainbow. And they take a nap, him and his son take a nap with their backs up against this tree that just so happens to share space between both worlds. And when Yazelski wakes up, his son's gone. He's missing. He realizes he's in, and there's this mysterious wall of fog that has appeared on the other side of the rainbow. But yeah, so he decides he probably might have to enter that fog to go save his son, but he doesn't really want to. And then this mysterious hand shows up and offers to lead him to the other side where his son is. And he doesn't really trust the hand, but he says, I'll follow you in. And he follows him in, and he immediately regrets it. He falls into a dismal dream and realizes he can't wake up. But then eventually he does wake up, and he finds out that a unicorn has done all of this. And that he goes on this big epic journey. And I call it like a disturbing retelling of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, twisted by Shakespeare's cruel and sadistic side. So that's how I ended up describing that book. That's book 3, and book 4 will be out in the spring. Hopefully sometime. Those are my 3 novels from, I don't know if I even can't fit them all in there. Without YouTube telling me I'm not supposed to. There they are. Those are my 3 novels in the series, The Books of 9 and 10 Penance. Oh yeah, and I've been reading this one right now too. So that one I'm currently reading on the weekends. So hopefully people will chime in for that. Um, you can. There's a playlist for all of them. I can't remember what chapter am I on? Chapter 7 now. And of course that one I read the whole thing. But yeah, so I don't know if I'll get to read. I got a lot of short stories I want to read. So I don't know. I had a lot of fun writing. There's a lot of short stories that'll never get published. I thought it'd be fun maybe just to read those on here. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, like I said, that one, The Greatest Storm, I'm reading right now on my channel. And I'm going to try and get through the whole book um, so people can hear what my stories are about. Because I'm sure a lot of you never heard of me before. But that's me right there, J.E. Krueger, author of the books of 9 and 10 Penance, and that's my hand. I think I did pretty good drawing it. God, it took forever. I could not get a... It's like you got to take your hand. It's like this. And then you got to look at it. You should see the other drafts and then draw it, you know. I used to do that when I was a kid. I didn't think I could do it now. There's the back of the book. There's the back of the book. I thought it was pretty haunting. You know? Kind of spooky. I guess, yeah, that's it. I don't know if anybody... I had one person say hi, but those are my books. Well, hello, other person. Cool, there are people on the other end. That's nice to know. Yeah. I found the best thing to do on here is just do chapter readings. That's what I've mostly been doing. Doing on YouTube. I published a lot of poetry on here. The one below. Which one? This one? I don't know what that means. But yeah, I published a lot of poetry on here. And I had fun with that. My poetry brain is split. Which one? This one? Right here? I'll read some of it. I'll read a little bit. All right. I'll read. Here, I'll show these two in there. Because this, by the time I got to the third novel, that's when I really knew I didn't really have to think as hard when I was writing. Yeah, I'll read the first page because I really enjoyed it. Should I do it? I'll try and do it in the character voice. It's hard for me to keep up with the character voices. I don't know if I can pull it off. The first chapter is called Yazelski the Hunter. Yazelski was my uncle. Once upon a time, in a kingdom not far, lived Count Karl Yazelski III, the man with the uneven brow. He was a hunter by trade ever since he was a small child, a knee-high burden for his parents to bear. He ruled his lands with an even temper when the sun was out and brightly lit in his favor. And he ruled his lands with an iron fist when the moon was full and glowing in anger. When his two dogs, Bertha and Flossie, barked, most would cringe in fear. When they barked at him, he barked back, and they listened with attentive, obedient ears. He lived by an old credo passed down to him from one father to the next. Either kill or be killed. That is the way the Yazelskis have always lived. Now it was time for Yazelski to teach his son Stefan the ways of a hunter. But it seemed the old ways were lost on him. He didn't have a brutish side trying to get out and scream at the world like his father did. So he went with his son deep into the woods to teach him all that he knows, but he was unable to get him to raise that bow and carry on the family credo. No, that's all right. Go to sleep. That was actually probably a good idea. That was the first chapter, and I had a lot of fun writing it. So Yeah, maybe I'll read the first chapter from the Magic Paintbrush. But this one was a dark fantasy. And this one, the coming of age tale, the Magic Paintbrush, about a boy trapped in a painting. And I had a lot of fun jokes with that one. He's been trapped in the painting for over 500 years. Actually, 575 years, something like that. So he's been trapped, and I had to come up with a way to split the character in half because he tells his story. So if he tells his story and he starts off over 500 years ago, he's going to be a little kid. But if he's been trapped in the painting for over 500 years, then his voice, I figured he's probably gone a little insane. So there's chapters in there where he's just talking and he's in the painting. And I felt like, well, he should probably sound a little nuts. I don't know if I can. I'll read the first page on this one too, for the Magic Paintbrush. If I can find it here. The first chapter is called The Man Inside the Painting, and a lot of this was ripped off of this guy who had just about as much problems with art history as I did, and he wrote this thing about art history. And I kind of agreed with him on a lot of it. It was written over 100 years ago. In the Holbein Museum of Fine Art, when nothing interesting ever happened and no one ever had anything interesting to say, an inquisitive young boy wandered from room to room. He rarely passed another living soul. Those he did pass didn't seem to notice him at all. They were too busy talking at a whisper to the paintings hanging on the wall. It's important for them to use as many dull and boring words possible to discuss the dull and boring art. Because that's what you do in an art museum. That's how you enjoy fine art. Occasionally, someone will shout, "Absolutely exquisite," in a high-pitched squeal. This type of behavior is not to be tolerated. Excitement is never allowed in the museum, under any circumstances. You are to stare at the paintings, discuss their finer points, and what you find overall to be lacking. This is the objective of the critic or the snob, to point out the faults and the flaws in the artist's work as they meander on a pentennial pilgrimage to dissect painting after painting until there is nothing left but an objectionable opinion. And that was kind of like my take on art history, because I grew up with a lot of art history, or a lot of art. I grew up around a lot of artists, and they were all relatively boring. So I grew up in an art home, went to a lot of art shows, and the people in the art world are very full of themselves, I found out, and just really boring. They talk about their art, and they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And then I'd look at their art and I go, wow, that's not much to talk about. So yeah, part of that book was kind of taking huge jabs at the art world and the critique of it, because it seemed like art was more about talking points than it was the actual art. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. Well, anyways, I hope you guys check out my novels, the books of 9 and 10 Penance. I believe in quality over output, so I don't, it takes a couple of years before I release every book. So like this book, the first one sat on the shelf a long time. And then 2 years later, I released this one. And like almost 3 years later, I released that one. And that's just kind of how I do it. But thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back next weekend reading from The Greatest Storm. I hope you'll tune in for that. Thanks for listening.